You pick up a book, 30 minutes pass. What just happened in your brain could add years to your life. Not metaphorically, actually. Scientists at Yale tracked 3,635 people over 50 for 12 years. Book readers live 23 months longer than non-readers. That's almost 2 full years. Not from money, not from education, not from health at the start, from reading. How does ink on paper extend a human lifespan? What's happening inside the skull when you turn a page? And why do books work when newspapers don't? National Institute on Aging funds it. Social Security Administration backs it. It's one of the largest longitudinal studies tracking aging in America. Levy's team zeroes in on 3,635 participants who answered questions about reading habits at baseline. They split them into 3 groups. Non-readers, people reading up to 3.5 hours per week. People reading more than 3.5 hours weekly. Then they wait. 12 years of follow-up. Survival data rolls in, death certificates, medical records. The pattern emerges fast. Reading books cuts mortality risk by 20% over 12 years compared to reading nothing. At 80% mortality, the point where 20% of each group has died, book readers live 108 months from baseline. Non-readers make it to 85 months, 23-month gap. Newspapers and magazines show weaker effects. Only the highest turtle hits statistical significance with a hazard ratio of 0.89. Books deliver something periodicals don't. 16 pages, 44 to 48, authored by Avni Bhavishi, Martin Slade, and Becca Levy at Yale's Laboratory of Epidemiology and Public Health, and cross-referenced with the Health and Retirement Study longitudinal dataset maintained by the Institute for Social Research at University of Michigan, funded under Grant U01 AG 009-740 from the National Institute on Aging. Now back to the information. 33% of non-book readers died during follow-up. 27% of book readers died, 6 percentage point spread. Participants reading just 30 minutes daily show the survival advantage. Levy tells the New York Times people who report as little as half an hour a day of book reading had a significant survival advantage over those who did not read. The advantage persists after controlling for every variable the researchers can measure. Cognitive ability at baseline doesn't explain it. Readers didn't start smarter. Income doesn't explain it. Rich and poor both benefit. Gender, race, education don't explain it. The effect holds across all demographics. Something about the act of reading books specifically protects against death. Does cognition explain the link between books and longevity? They test it. Reading books at baseline predicts cognitive scores later. Cognitive scores predict survival. The indirect effect through cognition is statistically significant. 95% confidence interval from 0.01 to 0.10. Cognition fully mediates the survival advantage. Books keep the brain sharper longer. Sharp brains keep bodies alive longer. Why books and not magazines? 2 cognitive processes. First process, deep reading. When you read a book, you don't skim, you engage. You make connections between chapters. You link the story to your own life, to the outside world. You ask questions about the content. Your brain doesn't just decode words, it builds networks. Vocabulary improves, reasoning strengthens, concentration extends, critical thinking sharpens. The slow immersive process of deep reading lights up circuits that scanning headlines never touches. Stanford University. Natalie Phillips runs an experiment. She's a literary scholar turned neuroscientist, PhD in English from Stanford, now assistant professor at Michigan State. She wants to know what close reading does to the brain. 18 PhD students in literature agree to read Jane Austen's Mansfield Park inside an fMRI scanner. The book projects onto a mirror above their eyes. Eye tracker monitors their gaze. Color coding signals when to switch reading modes. Green means pleasure reading. Red means close reading. Analyzing like you're studying for an exam. Motor areas activate. Bob Dougherty, the research director at Stanford's Center for Cognitive and Neurobiological Imaging, watches the scans come in. He's impressed by how the right patterns of ink on a page create vivid mental imagery and instill powerful emotions. He's surprised by how a simple request to change literary attention creates such a big impact on activity patterns during reading. Phillips explains the global increase in blood flow during close reading, suggests paying attention to literary texts requires coordination of multiple complex cognitive functions. Blood flow increases during pleasure reading too, but in different brain areas. Each style creates distinct patterns, far more complex than work versus play. Teaching close reading could serve literally as cognitive training, teaching us to modulate concentration and use new brain regions as we move flexibly between modes of focus. Neural networks for empathy strengthen. Social perception improves. Emotional intelligence grows. These cognitive processes lead to greater survival. People with strong social cognition manage relationships better. They access support networks. They navigate healthcare systems. They maintain mental health, all factors that extend life. He's a neuroscientist director of Emory's Center for Neuropolicy. 21 undergraduates participate, 19 consecutive days, July 18th to August 5th, 2011. First 5 days baseline scans, no reading, just resting state fMRI to establish a starting point. Next 9 days, each student reads 1/9 of the novel Pompeii by Robert Harris each evening. Historical fiction, strong narrative, page-turning plot. Based on the real eruption of Mount Vesuvius, protagonist tries to reach Pompeii to save the woman he loves while the volcano builds toward catastrophe. Every morning after reading, participants get another brain scan. Final 5 days washout period. No more reading, just scans to see how long changes persist. Even though participants aren't reading during the scan, the connectivity stays elevated. Shadow activity, like muscle memory. The brain remains primed for the task. Heightened connectivity also appears in the central sulcus, the primary sensory motor region. Neurons here create representations of bodily sensations. Grounded cognition. Just thinking about running activates neurons for the physical act of running. The neural changes associated with physical sensation and movement systems suggest reading a novel transports you into the body of the protagonist. You're not just following a story, you're living it at a neurological level. The connectivity changes don't vanish when the book ends. They persist for at least 5 days after finishing. Stories literally stay with you. Burns says, at a minimum, we can say reading stories, especially those with strong narrative arcs, reconfigures brain networks for at least a few days. This may have profound implications for children and the role of reading in shaping their brains. Then they try different relaxation methods. Listening to music, drinking tea or coffee, taking a walk, playing video games, reading. Researchers measure heart rate, muscle tension, stress markers. Reading wins. 6 minutes of reading reduces stress levels by 68%. Music drops stress by 61%. Hot beverage, 54%. Walk, 42%. Video games, 21%. Lewis explains it really doesn't matter what book you read. By losing yourself in a thoroughly engrossing book, you escape from worries and stresses of the everyday world. You spend time in the domain of the author's imagination. Concentration required for reading distracts the brain from anxious thinking. Heart rate slows. Muscle tension eases. The effect is immediate. Chronic stress accelerates aging. It increases inflammation, disrupts sleep, weakens immune function, strains cardiovascular system. Stress hormones like cortisol damage cells. Reading counters this. Regular reading lowers cortisol, decreases blood pressure, improves immune response. The calming effect protects against stress-related disease. Henry Ford Health cardiologist Vaidehi Patel explains, when you read, your heart rate slows down. Reading serves as a distraction that allows the body to forget about stress. Your heart doesn't have to work as hard. Cortisol levels decrease. Better sleep follows. Poor sleep associates with weight gain, obesity, increased heart disease risk. Reading before bed promotes quality sleep without the blue light disruption of screens. Above, 4 waves of surveys measure reading frequency and cognitive performance. Short, portable mental status. Questionnaire tests cognition. Logistic regression assesses associations. Higher reading frequencies mean at least once per week. Results clear. 6-year follow-up. Adjusted odds ratio 0.54. 10-year follow-up. Adjusted odds ratio 0.58. 14-year follow-up. Adjusted odds ratio 0.54. Reading protects cognitive function in later life. Frequent reading associates with reduced risk of cognitive decline for older adults at all education levels in the long term. The protection extends across educational backgrounds. College graduates benefit, high school graduates benefit, elementary educated benefit. Reading helps everyone. People in their 70s and 80s engage in mentally stimulating activities. Reading, puzzles, games. Researchers track cognitive decline over time. Activities reduce decline by 32%. The brain operates on use it or lose it principles. Neural connections strengthen with engagement. Atrophy with disuse. Reading forces multiple brain regions to coordinate. Language processing. Memory formation, visualization, reasoning, attention control. Each time you read, you reinforce those pathways, build cognitive reserve, create redundancy in neural networks. When disease or aging damages some pathways, backup routes exist. Cognitive reserve delays symptom onset of dementia. 2 people can have identical brain pathology. One shows severe symptoms. The other functions normally. Difference is reserve. Reading builds that buffer. Elizabeth Stein-Morrow, research professor of educational psychology at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, praises the Yale study, cites it every chance she gets. The mechanism she highlights, social emotional effects. Raymond Marr, professor of psychology at York University, Canada, co-author of many studies on reading benefits, echoes this. When you get lost in a book, you enter a trance-like state similar to meditation. That state is deeply protective. Like meditation, the calm reading brings mitigates stress and promotes longevity. Stress is one of the most powerful accelerators of aging. Studies show it increases inflammation, disrupts sleep, weakens immunity, strains cardiovascular system even at molecular level. Reading gently pulls the nervous system into regulation, engages the brain while allowing the body to rest. Zoe Shaw, Los Angeles-based psychotherapist who studies reading and longevity, explains reading engages the brain while body rests. Perfect combination for nervous system regulation. Cognitive decline than those who don't. The architecture of your brain changes with reading. Neural pathways strengthen, new connections form, brain regions communicate more efficiently. This isn't abstract. It's measurable, visible on scans, traceable through cognitive tests. The effect compounds. First book strengthens pathways, second book strengthens more, 10th book, 100th book, 1000th book. Each adds to the reserve. Each extends the buffer against decline. People who read extensively throughout life enter old age with brains that look years younger functionally than their chronological age would suggest. Participants randomly assigned to read passages, literary fiction, popular fiction, nonfiction, then tested on social cognition, reading the mind in the eyes test, identifying emotions from photographs of eyes only, Yoni test, interpreting character intentions from context. Literary fiction readers score significantly higher. They're better at identifying emotions through subtle cues, more adept at interpreting intentions. Why? Literary fiction presents complex plots, ambiguous characters, open-ended scenarios demanding active interpretation. You constantly fill gaps, decipher silences, follow internal shifts. In training the mind to decode imaginative worlds, you strengthen real-life ability to understand others. Enhanced empathy. Better social relationships, longer life. The more fiction someone reads, the more fluid the communication becomes between language areas and social cognition regions. Literary reading functions as mental workout for mentalizing, imagining what others think and feel. Daily training ground for the social mind. Enhances ability to navigate a world increasingly relational and complex. People with strong theory of mind maintain better relationships, access support when needed, navigate conflicts effectively, all protective factors for health and longevity. Poetry with rhythm engages temporal processing regions involved in music cognition. You have to create that rhythm yourself as you read. Trauma narratives, structured different ways, change empathetic response measurably. Interdisciplinary teams, humanists, radiologists, neuroscientists working together to map how stories enter brains and what they do once inside. Early findings suggest each person's reading history shapes their neural architecture uniquely. Two people reading the same book activate different patterns based on their prior reading experience. Your literary past influences how you process new narratives. Lifetime of reading creates specialized reading brain distinct from non-reader brain in structure and function. Reading trains this. You switch between close reading and pleasure reading, between critical analysis and emotional immersion, between character perspectives within a single story. Each switch exercises executive function, strengthens prefrontal cortex, improves impulse control, enhances planning ability, better decision-making follows. Cognitive flexibility predicts healthy aging. People who maintain flexibility into old age show slower decline. Stay independent longer. Adapt to changing circumstances. Reading especially complex narratives requiring perspective shifts provides that training naturally. Cultural events and book reading as determinants for survival. Reading books associates with reduced mortality. Finnish studies, German studies, Japanese studies all show similar patterns. Reading protects. The effect size varies, but direction holds. Books extend life, not genetics alone. 75% of longevity comes from non-genetic factors, behavioral factors, psychological factors, environmental factors. Reading influences all three. Behavior changes. Sitting with a book versus scrolling a phone. Psychology shifts. Stress decreases. Empathy increases. Environment matters. People who read engage differently with their surroundings. Notice more. Reflect more. Process experience more deeply. More than 3.5 hours weekly. The high reading group shows stronger survival advantage than medium reading group. Both beat non-readers, but more is better. Participants reading over 3.5 hours per week show 23% reduction in mortality risk. Medium readers, 17%. Dose response suggests causation. If reading were just a marker for some other protective factor, you wouldn't see linear relationship with amount. You see it. More reading equals longer life in a graduated way. Books demand sustained engagement. Chapters build on each other. Narrative arcs require memory of earlier events. Characters develop slowly. Themes emerge gradually. Your brain stays locked in for longer periods. That sustained deep attention drives the cognitive benefits. That's what builds reserve. Short bursts of reading might maintain existing capacity. Long immersive sessions build new capacity. Yale study used physical books because that's what the HRS data tracked. But mechanisms should work across formats. If deep reading happens, cognition improves. If empathy engages, survival benefits follow. Audiobooks require auditory processing instead of visual. Different pathways. But narrative comprehension, character tracking, theme identification all still occur. Ebooks provide same text as physical books. Reading mode matters more than medium. Close reading on a screen beats skimming on paper. The key is engagement depth, how much cognitive effort you invest, how thoroughly you immerse in the story world. Format flexibility means accessibility. People with vision problems can audiobook. People with physical limitations can ebook. Barriers to reading decrease. More people can access the longevity benefits. Brain plasticity peaks in childhood. Neural networks form fastest. Reading during development shapes architecture permanently. Kids who read extensively develop different brains than kids who don't. Stronger language areas, better connected emotional regions, enhanced executive function networks. These advantages compound across life. Child who reads becomes adult who reads. Adult reader accumulates decades of cognitive training. Enters old age with maximum reserve. The intervention point is early. Homes with books. Parents who read. Reading as family activity. Schools prioritizing literature. Libraries staying open. These shape population level longevity. Reading isn't just individual hobby. It's public health intervention. Communities with strong reading cultures might show better aging outcomes, lower dementia rates, reduced cognitive decline. Longer healthy lifespans. Data on this is still emerging, but logic follows from individual studies. Structured reading programs with therapeutic goals. Why not for aging? Reading as prevention. Build cognitive reserve before decline starts. Reading as intervention. Slow progression once symptoms begin. Reciting poetry helps Alzheimer patients, makes them more vocal, more socially engaged, activates remaining neural capacity. Could widespread reading programs delay dementia at population scale? Questions worth testing. Americans over 65 watch 4.4 hours of television daily. HRS data confirms it. Study participants spent more time on periodicals than books, averaged 3.92 hours weekly on books, 6.10 hours weekly on periodicals. Researchers suggest redirecting leisure time from television and magazines into books. Swap even 1 hour per day, 7 hours weekly, moves you into high reading turtle. Maximum survival advantage. Television passive, attention drifts, cognitive engagement minimal, brain on standby, reading active, attention focused, cognition fully engaged, brain working. That difference accumulates. 4 hours television daily across decades. Brain atrophy accelerates. 4 hours reading daily across decades. Brain resilience builds. Retirement creates time. How retirees spend time shapes their longevity. Reading offers accessible option. Free at library, cheap used, no special equipment needed, just book and time. Homelessness programs use shared reading. Mental health improves, social isolation decreases. Participants gain community. Bibliotherapy groups for various conditions all show benefits beyond individual reading. Loneliness kills, as deadly as smoking. Strong social ties protect health. Book clubs provide those ties. Regular meetings, shared interest, emotional discussions about characters and themes. Vulnerability emerges, trust builds. Friendships form. Reading together creates bonds. Those bonds extend life. If reading extends, employee lifespan reduces sick days, improves mental health, companies save money. Some forward-thinking organizations providing book allowances, curated reading lists, reading rooms, quiet spaces, recognizing that 30 minutes reading beats 30 minutes doom scrolling for employee well-being. Average person checks phone 96 times daily, every 10 minutes. Sustained attention impossible. Deep reading requires uninterrupted time. Hour or two minimum to enter flow state. Phones kill that. Social media engineered for addiction. Short content. Quick dopamine hits. Brain adapts. Long-form content feels harder. Reading stamina declines. We're creating a population of people who can't sustain attention long enough to read a novel, can't access the cognitive benefits, can't build the reserve, can't extend their lives through reading. This isn't individual failure. This is environment failure. We built systems that prevent reading. Then wonder why cognitive decline accelerates, why longevity gains slow, why young people show worse focus than previous generations. Reading and digital distraction are competing for same resource. Attention. One builds brain, other fragments it. Choices matter. Conservative estimate, real ratio probably higher. Same for schools cutting literature programs. Testing pressure removes reading time. Kids read less, adults read less. Population cognitive reserve decreases. Future dementia rates rise. Short-term budget savings. Long-term health disaster. Inverse, also true. Countries investing in reading infrastructure, strong library systems, literary culture, show better aging metrics, correlation, causation, both. Reading investment is longevity investment. Effect persists after adjusting for everything measurable. Mediation analysis shows cognition as pathway. Reading improves cognition. Cognition extends survival, causal chain established. Not just correlation, biological mechanisms supported by multiple independent studies. Stanford fMRI study shows how attention changes brain. Emory Connectivity Study shows changes persist. Sussex Stress Study shows physiological benefits. Taiwan Longitudinal shows cognitive protection. Rush Study shows decline prevention. Pieces fit together. Reading causes cognitive changes. Cognitive changes extend life. Fast readers cover more material, but do they engage as deeply? Slower reading might mean better comprehension, better retention, stronger cognitive effects, or maybe volume matters more. Does time of day matter? Morning reading versus evening reading? Different hormonal states, different attention capacity, might interact with circadian rhythms. Does reading environment matter? Quiet room versus coffee shop versus subway. Background noise affects concentration, might modulate benefits. Does print size matter? Larger print, easier on eyes. Smaller print requires more visual effort. Unclear if that helps or hurts. Does rereading matter? Second time through a book, different experience. Less narrative suspense, more attention to craft, might activate different networks. Digital book clubs connecting distant readers. Algorithms recommending books based on cognitive needs. Personalized reading prescriptions. If someone shows early cognitive decline, specific books might help. If someone high stress, different books might soothe. Adaptive reading programs, like physical therapy, but for brain. Starting easy, building capacity, increasing challenge. AI could assess comprehension, adjust difficulty. Keep readers in sweet spot, not too easy bores, not too hard frustrates, just right builds skill. Reading enhancement rather than replacement. Tools to support sustained deep engagement in age of distraction. Never too late to start. Yale study included people over 50 at baseline. They showed benefits. Some probably started reading during study period. Still gained survival advantage. Brains are plastic, responsive to experience. New neural connections form at any age. Dendrites sprout, synapses strengthen, networks reorganize. Reading drives that process. Every page, read is exercise for brain. Might not see immediate results, but after months, years, decades, the accumulated effect is massive. Brain that read thousands of books structurally different from brain that read none. Functionally superior, more resistant to age-related decline. That resistance translates to extra years of life. Maintains social bonds, stays mentally engaged, avoids isolation, manages stress, all factors that extend life. Cognitive decline reverses this. Can't manage health, miss appointments, forget medications, make poor choices. Relationships deteriorate, isolation increases, stress compounds, health spirals, death accelerates. Reading prevents that spiral, maintains the cognitive capacity needed to manage aging body. That's why readers live longer. Not because books are magic, because books keep brains working. Working brains keep bodies alive. You're not just breathing 2 more years, you're thinking clearly. Engaging fully, living actively. Reading gave you that. 30 minutes a day, half hour, 1 book per week, 50 books per year, 500 books per decade. Over life, thousands of books, each one building your brain, extending your time. Co-authors Martin Slade and Becca Levy, both Yale School of Public Health. Raw data from Health and Retirement Study. Supported by National Institute on Aging Grant U01 AG 009740. Social Security Administration provided additional funding. Study included 3,635 participants. 12-year follow-up period from baseline interviews, Cox proportional hazards, models for survival analysis. Controlled for age, sex race, education, wealth, health, depression, marital status. Mediation analysis showing cognition as pathway. Hazard ratios statistically significant at p less than 0.001 for both reading turtles. 23-month survival difference at 80% mortality point. 20% reduction in mortality risk for book readers versus non-readers. Published findings replicated in multiple media outlets. New York Times coverage, August 2016. Guardian coverage, August 2016. Scientific journal citations exceed 250. Study considered landmark in reading and longevity research. 14-year Taiwan study with nearly 2,000 participants shows reading reduces cognitive decline across all education levels. Emory University connectivity studies show reading changes brain structure measurably. Sussex stress research shows 68% stress reduction in 6 minutes. Stanford attention studies show different reading modes create distinct neural signatures. York University social cognition research shows fiction reading enhances empathy and theory of mind. Rush University Chicago shows 32% reduction in cognitive decline for mentally active older adults. Hundreds of studies now support what Yale found. Reading books extends human lifespan. The mechanism is cognitive. The evidence is overwhelming. The intervention is simple. Nonfiction, mystery, biography, science, history, literature. Pick one. Read 30 minutes daily, every day. Not sometimes. Daily, habit matters. Consistency matters. Over months, brain changes. Over years, reserve builds. Over decades, longevity extends. 23 months, nearly 2 years, sitting on library shelves, waiting for you. All you have to do is read. In 2021, researchers examining the original Yale dataset found additional patterns. Readers showed lower rates of cardiovascular disease, lower rates of depression, better sleep quality, higher social engagement, maintained independence longer, required less assisted living, lower healthcare costs in final years of life. Reading protects not just against death, but against decline before death. Extends health span, not just lifespan. That's the real win, not just more years, better years, active years, engaged years. Reading delivered that, 30 minutes daily, that's all it took. Small daily choices compound into big lifetime outcomes. You control this. Nobody forces you to read. Nobody stops you from reading. Your choice, your brain, your longevity. Pick up a book, turn the page, start now. Public health discussions changed. Medical recommendations shifted. Aging research expanded. Libraries gained new argument for funding. Schools reinforced literature programs, all because 3,635 people over 50 answered questions about reading habits. All because Yale researchers ran the numbers. All because they found 23-month survival advantage. All because they published the truth. Books extend life. Not belief, not hope. Fact. Documented, measured, proven. It's distributed network activity. Multiple systems working in concert. That coordination is training. Each reading session strengthens interregional communication, faster signal transmission, more efficient processing, better integration of information across brain systems. This efficiency creates reserve. When disease damages one pathway, other pathways compensate. Reader brains have more pathways, more compensation capacity, more resilience. White matter integrity matters. White matter is the wiring, connects brain regions, enables communication. Age typically degrades white matter. Myelin sheaths thin, signal transmission slows, cognitive processing slows with it. Reading protects white matter. Studies using diffusion tensor imaging show readers maintain better white matter integrity into old age, particularly in language tracts. Left arcuate fasciculus. Connects language comprehension and production areas. Readers show denser, more organized fibers here. Translation, faster word processing, better verbal fluency, protected language abilities. But effects extend beyond language tracts. Reading requires coordination across brain. That coordination strengthens all connecting pathways. General white matter protection follows. Better preserved brain structure equals better preserved function equals longer healthy life, particularly in frontal and temporal regions. Prefrontal cortex executive control center shows protection. Temporal lobes, language and memory centers, show protection. Hippocampus memory formation center shows protection. These regions critical for maintaining independence, managing daily life, making decisions, learning new information. Reading preserves them. Larger volume means more neurons, more processing capacity, better function. The link between structure and longevity becomes clear. Reading protects brain structure, protected structure maintains function, maintained function extends survival. Cognitive stimulation enhances it. Reading provides cognitive stimulation. Complex, sustained, mentally demanding. Studies on enriched environments show that mental stimulation increases neuron birth rates. Reading counts as enrichment. New neurons integrate into existing circuits, add processing power, enhance memory capacity. Readers producing more new neurons throughout life, building larger neural populations, creating more redundancy. When some neurons die, others remain. Cognitive function preserved longer. That's part of the reserve mechanism. Not just strengthening existing neurons, creating new ones. Reading maintains it. Each new concept learned, each character tracked. Each theme identified creates new synaptic connections, or strengthens existing ones. Long-term potentiation, the cellular mechanism of memory. When two neurons fire together repeatedly, the connection between them strengthens. Signal transmission becomes easier. Pattern becomes ingrained. Reading provides constant opportunities for potentiation. New vocabulary words, new conceptual relationships, new narrative structures. Each strengthens and creates synapses. Readers maintain higher synaptic density into old age. More connections mean more resilient networks. Damage to some synapses doesn't eliminate function. Other synapses compensate. Network remains operational. Function persists. Life extends. Attention requires no norepinephrine. Sustained focus needs dopamine. Learning needs acetylcholine. Emotional engagement involves serotonin. Reading exercises all these systems. Regular use maintains them. Neurotransmitter production remains robust. Receptor sensitivity stays high. Aging normally degrades neurotransmitter function. Production declines. Receptors become less sensitive. Cognitive decline follows. Reading slows this degradation. Keeps neurotransmitter systems active and functional. Maintained neurotransmitter function supports maintained cognition. Maintained cognition extends life. The chain is clear at every level: molecular, cellular, Systems, behavioral. Reading produces changes that accumulate into longevity. Inflammation disrupts blood-brain barrier, allows harmful substances into brain tissue, damages neurons, accelerates cognitive decline. Stress increases inflammation. Reading decreases stress. Therefore, reading decreases inflammation. Studies measuring inflammatory markers show lower levels in people engaged in cognitively stimulating activities. See reactive protein. Interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor, alpha, all lower in readers. Lower inflammation means less brain damage, better preserved cognitive function. Extended life. The anti-inflammatory effect of reading operates through multiple pathways. Stress reduction is one. Social engagement is another. Readers more socially connected. Social connection reduces inflammation directly. Purpose and meaning yet another. Reading provides existential engagement. Sense of meaning. Purpose protects health, reduces inflammation. All pathways lead to same outcome. Reading protects brain. Protected brain extends life.